CNN Global Affairs analyst Kimberly Dozier. Kimberly, good morning to you. Let's start with this loss of Avdiivka and the Russian now complete control of that city. We know that the Ukrainians need ammunition, right? They need artillery rounds. So they are at a disadvantage here. Does the, taking of this city now suggest the inverse about Russia, that they are now have overcome many of those challenges that we saw in the first year, the first 18 months of this war?
Victor, the Russians do seem to have secured their supply lines in terms of materiel, the weapons that they need to prosecute this war. They've made deals with North Korea, with China for non-lethal aid, with North Korea for lethal aid, and they've also ramped up their own manufacturing supply lines. Plus, you have to remember, it's a numbers game, and Russia is 4 times the population of Ukraine. So as Ukrainian commanders say on the ground, in the town that they've just retreated from, they were outnumbered. One commander estimated it was about 7 to 1. And the general now in charge of the Ukrainian army, he was last in charge of Bakhmut, and he'd been criticized for sacrificing too many Ukrainian troops' lives to hold a piece of ground that had been utterly destroyed. This time, he's decided to pull out, save lives, and also ration ammunition. Even the White House has said, the Ukrainians know that while they have enough ammunition right now, they're looking at an insecure supply line, and they've got to keep their powder dry, literally, for holding on to more crucial parts of the country.
Yeah, 2 questions of that, more crucial parts. Does Avdiivka give the Russians some outsized strategic positionings? Does it have some exponential strategic value?
Look, it's a small town, but it does make it easier for them to continue to resupply the Donbass, which is one of the areas that they've held for a long time, some of the populated parts of the Donbass. So it is a strategic loss in that way, even though it had mostly been decimated by constant artillery fire from both sides. This has become a matter of, retreating and keeping what you need to keep, and basically preserving your troops and your weaponry for a larger fight another day. Ukraine has had a manpower problem, and the Ukrainian president has said he needs to possibly call up as many as 500,000 new troops, but he doesn't know where he's going to get the money to pay for that, much less the ammunition for them to fire.
Speaking of money to pay and ammunition to fire, I want to read a line or two from the White House readout of the call between President Biden and President Zelensky, in which they say Ukraine's military was forced to withdraw from Avdiivka after Ukrainian soldiers had to ration ammunition due to dwindling supplies as a result of congressional inaction, resulting in Russia's first notable gain in months. There were Ukrainian gains and losses when the money was flowing, when the aid was flowing. Do you see a direct correlation, a causal relationship between the fight in Congress and this loss of Avdiivka?
Well, on the ground in Ukraine, there was already a big hit to morale when the counteroffensive of the spring didn't achieve what President Zelensky and others had promised it might achieve, a major capture of territory, driving the Russians back. Instead, it's mostly resulted in static lines, and the Russians remain dug in many of the areas the Ukraine hoped to seize. So that was a gut punch for many Ukrainians. And now on top of that, to hear that while, yes, Germany, France, the EU have secured and promised aid, their biggest funder, the US, looks shaky. And you pile on top of that former President Trump's comments that he would let NATO countries get attacked by Russia if they didn't invest the full 2% of their GDP in their own defense. Sorry to get granular, but it's that granular. All of this combines to make up a picture that means Ukrainians feel abandoned, and that's contributing to their sense of, why keep fighting, except the fact that they know what Moscow does when it wins. They've seen it in places where atrocities have occurred, so they have to keep fighting, but they're feeling more and more abandoned by the West.
Yeah. The former president phrases it as, if the countries don't pay, and you put it in the right context. So we don't mind some granularity when it's a fact check. Kimberly Dozier, thanks so much.
Much more ahead on CNN this morning. Former President Trump is back on the campaign trail on the heels of a $355 million fine, and he is once again going after the judge. Plus, Israeli soldiers document their military offensive in real time, how they are using social media to highlight the IDF's activity. And one down, one to go. California braces for a